We've got a remake video coming today, and I think I might have got this perfect. It's close. You're going to have to be the judge of that. So we're going to be looking at Dolla Strangers today. I want to teach you what I've learned as I remade this. But before we hop into that, if you don't know who I am, my name is Zach Edward. I'm a teacher at Cosmic Academy. We're an artist development program. We've been doing this for over 10 years. We've had about 500 students come through the program that we work with on a one-on-one basis. These students sign to the biggest labels like Spinnin, Toolrom, Anjuna. They play some of the biggest shows like EDC and Ultra. And the one thing we care about are results. And that's what we're going to try and do for you here today as well. So let's open up the project. Let's take a look at what I was able to do. All right, so you could see the hat came off, the bald head is out, and we mean business. So let me show you what I got here. We're going to transition from the original song into the drop that I created. Check it out. Before we go any further, I want you to put in the comments right now, how close was I to the original? 100%, 95%, 70%, 10%? If you hate me, drop a comment right now and let me know. So let's break it down. Let's go through the track. And I would recommend following along, remake some of these sounds with me as I show you what's going on underneath the hood. And in general, I think the biggest takeaway I had remaking this specific song is, look at how simple it is. It's just a handful of quality sounds, great writing, and this should be a reminder to you. It's a reminder to myself. We don't need to make this shit more complicated than it needs to be. This song is awesome. It sounds fantastic. It hits hard. And you see, there's not much going on. It really is the quality of the ingredients that makes this song sound so great. So let's take a look at it. We're going to go through the bass. We're going to go through the leads, kind of talk about how they're created. And like I said, please follow along, recreate these with me, and you'll have them forever. All right, so we're going to look at the sub bass first. Here is the MIDI, pretty simple progression. Now, as far as the synth goes, let me show you what's going on. I know you're probably sitting there saying, what the f just happened? We're stopping the video real quick so you can hit that subscribe button. Do it now. We are posting non-stop videos on this page and we want to help you get results. Hit the subscribe button. Let's get back into it. Two basic saw waves. I have one oscillator A at -2 octave. Oscillator B is -1. So the oscillator B is sitting 1 octave higher than oscillator A. And if you hear them individually, that's A, this is B. So what's going on is basic saw wave. Oscillator B is the stereo saw wave that you're hearing. So there's two voices of unison. Detune is turned up a little bit. And I've also removed the fundamental from this. So there's no low end on oscillator B, as you could hear. It's a cool trick. I don't remember where I saw this on Instagram or YouTube, but if you open up the little pencil, go to process, you could remove the fundamental, which removes the low end within that oscillator. So kind of cool. Here's the benefit of having these two oscillators instead of me just going with one or the other. In stereo, this is a nice sub that has some stereo width. But check out what happens if I go to my master and we flip on this mono button over here. The translation is still going to be really, really strong. Let's also open up a correlation meter. The translation is going to be really strong in mono and still sound stereo because of this single voiced oscillator. Sure, this is going to produce some stereo width, but this kind of keeps the mono consistency there. Check this out. Stereo, mono, and look at the correlation. Still pretty good, pretty consistent. So anytime I do these kind of like saw wave bass pads, I always like to make sure I have the two oscillators, one dedicated in mono, respaces. This works well too. It just helps with your mono compatibility. Okay, from a processing standpoint, honestly, there's not much going on here. Little bit of just distortion and drive using the SSL vintage drive, but this is transparent for the most part. Some corrective EQ, just kind of getting rid of some of the top end. Little bit of compression afterwards, just trying to tame the consistency. So if you notice the way it plays, see that second note jumps up in volume and the compressor clamps down on it? Ready? Here. So I've set the threshold to really just react to that second note in the progression, this one right here, that does get a little bit louder. The compressor clamps down a bit, levels out my overall performance, which is kind of nice. Finally, a little bit of sidechain. I am doing multi-band sidechain using Shaperbox. If you follow our page on Instagram, you know this is like my favorite plugin in the world. So on the sub, the lowest level, I do have a deeper kind of cut here, which does fit well with the drums. Making sure I stay clear of that kick. And then the stuff on top, more of like the audible mid-range frequencies, this can be a very quick sidechain. This doesn't have to duck as deep. You'll notice much quicker compared to this. The low frequencies have to duck around the whole tail of the kick. The mid frequencies in my bass only have to duck around the click of the kick. All right, so another layer that kind of adds on to the bass is sort of this like brassy bass stab. And it just accents the downbeat. It follows the progression. As far as how it's made, similar concept, basic saw waves, removing the fundamental with that trick I showed you a couple seconds ago, but just a couple oscillators detuned from one another. So you notice that some of the fine tune is changed on each of these. There's also some voices of unison with detune. You really want that detune sound. I mean, that's exactly what it was in the song. As far as the envelope goes, though, you're going to notice there's this long tail. I don't have any envelopes modulating the filter cutoff. This just remains stationary, but the length is going to come from this release. So if I shorten it, right, you could use it as more of like a short downbeat stab if you just adjust the envelope. But in this specific song, it was much longer and it did sort of carry on through the section. A little bit of noise on there. If we go to the effects panel, you can kind of copy these settings here, but tiny bit of hyper dimension. It really wasn't adding much because there was already so many voices of unison. A little bit of distortion always helps. Some EQ, just bringing out the top end, which is going to be funny because we're going to cut it in a second. And reverb to wash the shit out of this. For the processing of this downbeat stab, kind of just some funky EQ. And I'm going to be honest, this was me just mirroring the song, trying to get it shaped exactly like the other. I don't know if I would ever come up with a shape like this on my own. Hey, maybe that's what it takes. But, just scooping out a shit ton of this like 1 to 3, 1 to 4K, boosting the fuck out of the high end with the 40K airband on a Moog, and then literally cutting it afterwards with the dangerous back EQ. For those of you that don't know this EQ, this is like my favorite thing for filtering high end. It's such a gradual slope that it gets rid of like those wispy highs, but almost has this like transparent feel to it where it still sounds bright, even though you're filtering things out. I also do have a shelf lowering by a couple dBs here. And then if we go to the Pro Q, this was me just continuously trying to get closer and closer to the original sound. So a little more of a shelf, another filter. Probably could have achieved all of this in one EQ, but I, as time went on, I was trying to get closer and closer and I kind of spaced it out, but we got there. As far as sidechain, kind of basic shapes. I did split it. The lower band is pumping at 100% mix. The higher stuff is at 48. So you could hear how it's split, kind of like the muffled shit, the brighter stuff on top, and that doesn't pump as much. So if I play it with the bass and the drums all together, now they sound like this. Next, we're going to take a look at the lead. It sounds like this. Now, opening up Serum, I did originally make this inside of Diva, and I said, you know what? Most people probably don't have Diva, and more people have Serum. So let's remake it in Serum. And the first thing I noticed was the stock saw wave in Serum was not getting me to the sound I wanted, and I immediately switched it to the basic mini, which is also what Diva has the emulation of, and it sounded much, much closer to the original. So starting with the basic mini, you could see it's just one simple oscillator. I do have an envelope that is controlling the filter cutoff here. So what this is doing is just kind of popping the filter open and close. Another thing I have a little bit of is using this note feature where I have this on the cutoff as well. And what this will mean is as the notes go high, when it goes boom, boom, and jumps up in the notes in the MIDI, the higher notes will also open the filter up a little bit more as well. So just the subtlety I feel like I kind of noticed in the original. Nothing on the effects panel. Very, very basic sound. Now that kind of leads me to, what if we turn off all of this post-processing? What does it sound like? So I've turned off all of the post-processing, and let's just take a look at what the original synth sounds like on its own. Pretty simple, pretty basic. A lot of what this sound ends up being in the end is through the post-processing chain, and it is a shit ton of distortion. What did I learn from doing this? Sometimes I forget there are no rules when it comes to sound design, and I always feel like I walk very carefully through my projects because I know too many rules, and I forget that you can break them. And there is so much distortion and shit going on in this chain, but you know what? Like, it got me to where I was trying to go, and it sounds like the original. And that's just a great reminder that when it comes to sound design, there are no rules. So the first distortion, already getting us closer. Got two bands going here in sort of these mids and highs. The lower one using the clean tube, top one using the heavy saturation. I also play with the mix knob a lot. So oftentimes I'll crank the drive, like if we listen to this band. I like to crank the drive and then blend in the mix, like the amount I want. So I listen for the crunch, then I kind of blend in the mix that I want. Afterwards, a little bit of EQ, just kind of shaping, trying to, again, match the original sound. As far as compression goes, really just trying to balance the take. Right? Some of the volumes, boom, 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 they jump out. That's what compression's for. Compression creates more consistency in the sound and performance. Next, little bit of redux and bit crushing. Followed by another Saturn. This one's doing a lot less. To be honest, I probably don't need that. Pro Q coming into play. This was more mixing, fitting it in with everything else that falls underneath, and we'll play it all together in a second. Again, another instance of the dangerous back EQ, my favorite one for filtering high end, cutting at about 12.6K, very smooth. You can see it just gets rid of like that whistling on top. So clean, you almost don't even know it's there. Another decimort. So at this point, this was towards the end, I got close, but like my lead wasn't as dirty as his. And this kind of got me that dirt. So this is a plugin from D16, Decimort, really nice distortion plugin. A little bit of reverb. Sidechain. And then just some effects. So I have a delay on here, which is just a dotted eighth and an eighth. So we'll play these two together. And then I also have a higher delay in mono. So the top one is a stereo delay. This is a mono delay. All three of them together though. And if we play that back with kick, bass, drums. And then it was just bullshit effects. Like that's majority of the song. You know, there's this little reverse bell that I found and created. Little effects clap. And that's it. There isn't much to this song. If we just kind of circle back and think about what did we learn, first off, less is more. Like, this sounds like a full track. This is fat as hell. There are literally 3 instruments. That is it. As far as processing, I think the distortion was pretty eye-opening. Like I said, I normally tippy-toe through sound design sometimes because I'm afraid to fuck up and push things too far. But pushing things far is what makes this sound like it does in the actual song and in the actual mix. We remember what the original unprocessed sound was with the lead versus what it sounds like in the end. It's night and day. So one more time, let's play it through. Before I sign off, I hope you learned something in this video. Probably a little more in depth than a typical remake video, but that's how we roll. Like at Cosmic Academy, we're no bullshit. We're here for the serious producers, the serious artists. I'm not going to do some synth video and just tell you to turn a knob to 3 seconds. You don't get better. You don't learn from that. We want to help you get results. We want to teach you how to do this stuff the right way. So make sure you hit that subscribe if you haven't already. We have so many videos coming. They're already made, so I could tell you this. We have so much stuff coming. Make sure you subscribe, and I will hopefully catch you in the next video. See ya.